show. It'll say
Yeah,
right now.
it's live. Okay, so we can get going. Sorry about the delay, everybody. That was a difficulty that turned out to be my fault. So I'm going to be co-hosting with Rob and with Polly tonight because Christi is celebrating happy St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I did have to note that I could not find one green thing to wear in my closet. Like I literally have like nothing green. So I put a green picture behind me just for the spirit of the occasion. So, and Rob and I don't know each other. We've talked a couple of times on Lives with Christi. So we're going to hopefully have a lively and informative discussion tonight and really look forward to it. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Polly. And thank you for inviting me. So we have four topics for discussion. And the first one is the impact of this war against Iran on the Canadian economy and on in the macro level, but also on as individual Canadians. And just by a bit of background, I'm sure most people know this, but on February the 28th, Trump and Netanyahu launched attacks into Iran. And the reason they did this has not really been coherently stated at all. They've said a number of things. They wanted to get rid of their nuclear capability, which they said they did the last time they bombed a few months ago. They want regime change. Trump is saying different things than his Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, who is known to be completely and utterly incompetent. And Marco Rubio is saying something different. So there's not really any sort of consistent or coherent reason as to why they're doing this. And I think they thought it would be a Venezuela. They do a quick in bomb and get rid of the leader and then get out. And that has not materialized because the Iranians are not the Venezuelans and they've been preparing for this a long, long time. So we are where we are now since February the 28th. And basically, I've been reading a lot of intelligence and military intelligence experts because I'm definitely not one. And basically what they're saying is that you cannot bomb your way into regime change, and that this regime has been, the Iranian regime has been planning for this for 40 years. They have multiple layers of successorship for their leadership. So they killed the main Ayatollah, who was already in his 80s, but they have layers of people, they say 6 to 8 layers of people standing in the wings, and that they're younger. And if the regime were to succeed, because at this point there's no indication it's going to end, that they will be a lot younger than the old Ayatollah and a lot nastier. So this could totally backfire on the poor people of Iran. They also have been able to stockpile their drones, their mines, all of their radar equipment, at a much more rapid and cheaper rate than what the Americans are doing with their missiles. And they've been very effective at closing the strait, of Hormuz, which so many of our products go through: oil, LNG, fertilizer, aluminum, metals, all sorts of products that the world needs. So this is what they call a black swan event, which is something that was completely unexpected. It is potentially absolutely catastrophic and extreme. And we have a leadership in the United States that's not able to deal with it and not willing to deal with it. So I was just wanted to say, Rob, before I get you involved, is that basically for Canada, the increase in oil prices is going to be really good for Alberta oil companies, and for the Alberta government in terms of royalties. They'll make a lot of money off of this because they're going at almost, as I understand it, full oil production. It's good for the Canadian dollar, which is not good for our exports, but who knows how the lack of tanker traffic will impact exports. But anyhow, it's good for our Canadian dollar. And unfortunately for the rest of Canada, we pay world prices for our gas. So we will, as we've all seen at the pumps, I took a little walk to my local gas station, and our gas here is at $2.04. And last week it was like at $1.70. So the gas prices are going up, and they're going to keep going up as this thing ramps up. It is going to have an impact again on fertilizer for farmers. We have potash in Canada, lots of it, but we don't have the nitrate. I think it's the nitrate or the nitrate one, which we need. And that goes through the Strait of Hormuz as well. So farmers are already starting to feel an impact. And I saw farmers in the United States talking about the price increases that they're already seeing. And that's going to affect the being able to plant and to start their farming process for this season. And then there's the supply chain of all sorts of other goods. I heard Mr. Global say that when this happens, when it's this difficult to get fuel and it's this expensive, that the majority of goods in the world are transported by sea, and that these tankers then, or these ships, these freighters, I guess, that they go a lot slower than they normally would to save fuel. So that's going to start backing up supply chains, which will impact in Canada, our ports in Vancouver and Halifax. And the other one that's really serious that they're talking about are food costs are going to rise exponentially. And that is going to be catastrophic or very, very painful for Canadians who are on a limited income, and probably even those that aren't, depending on how high the cost goes. And the other impact they're saying for us is that if the US economy slows down, which it has been, or if it goes into a recession, there'll be less demand for our goods that we ship down there. So there's all sorts of very serious perils here, including inflation. So the only way that I've seen from, again, these experts I follow to deal with this is that they need to open the strait. That anything else that the world does, using oil reserves, accompanying tankers through the strait, which they can't even really do logistically, these escorts, gas tax holidays, they basically say that isn't going to make a dent in this because the significance of the closure is so extreme. And at this point, from what I saw from Trump today, he's begging for allies to come in, and then he's saying we don't need you, and he doesn't know what he's doing. So this is serious for Canadians. And so my question, Rob, for you is, do you have anything to add to that? And do you think that there's going to be a political fallout for Mark Carney if this continues, which at this point it looks like it will?
This is such an ongoing thing that's going to continue to rapidly develop. I mean, we just saw that one of the main, I forget his name, but in the Trump organization, who resigned, who basically called out saying there was no reason for this war other than the fact that Israel wanted this war, and it's plain to see. And I mean, this guy's in there. He sees all the briefings. He sees everything. He knows everything that's happening. And for this guy to say that there was pretty much no reason for this war other than the fact that Israel wanted this war, which Israel's wanted this for so long, and Trump was just, dumb enough to do it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And, we're sitting here at a point where the entire world is now going to be affected. As you're saying, we're going to start seeing inflation again, and we're going to start seeing, food prices rise. We're going to start seeing, probably in Canada, the agriculture that's coming from Mexico and in the US that's being transported up here. That's probably going to be the very first hit that we're going to start seeing. The strawberries and things like that are being produced down south that we're trucking up here. That's going to all that stuff is just going to start going up probably at least anywhere between 10 and 20%. We already see gas prices, they've already gone up 15 to 25% in some areas. It's obviously over $2 here as well where I am, a liter. So I mean, we're sort of seeing a lot of interesting things. I mean, the biggest thing for me is when you see a lot of people online and they're blaming the liberal government for gas prices, and I just honestly I shudder to think like what's going on in their world, that they think that this is a Mark Carney's issue. I don't think it's going to be a lot of pressure on Mark Carney, though. I think a lot of people understand that this is not our war. I don't want to see Canadians getting involved in this whatsoever. We are out. We don't want any part of this. And, if anything, if we are going to be a part of it, we need to sort of go in and try to de-escalate this war and end this war and help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But as of right now, I mean, it's baffling what's happening. And the fact that everyone around the world is not standing up to the United States and saying, hey, this has to stop. Like, you're ruining our economies right now. You're decimating the world for no reason. And that's the problem, is there is no reason behind this. So for me, I don't think it's going to affect Mark Carney. I think the Conservatives, do whatever they possibly can to try and discredit the Liberal government, and they're going to blow smoke, and they're going to act like there's, something that is Carney's fault for this. But I mean, really, anyone who understands anything to do with politics or gas prices will understand that has nothing to do with the Liberal government.
My opinion on this is exactly what yours is, with the caveat that if Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, because I have a hard time saying his name. It's a brain thing. I don't know why, but I really have a hard time saying it. If they continue on with this, because we have Israel is now Bibi is using phosphate in
Phosphorus.
Lebanon. Phosphorus. That's it.
Thank
Thank you. In Lebanon. And he is bombing everything. It doesn't matter whether you're a civilian or child or innocent woman or anything like that. He is bombing everything. And Trump has joined this war. And the US did drop a bomb on the school and kill children. Sorry, I don't know what I can say here without being if I have to pay a lot of money for gas at the pump, I would rather do that than join this war and kill innocent children. I would rather walk than have gas. Like if the cost of this war is cheap gas, I would rather walk.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue that we're seeing right now is this is Israel's war. I mean, this is Israel's war. They've roped the United States into it, and they've been trying for 40 years. You know, they've been trying to get the U.S. in to help them, and they finally were successful. And you know, you've seen it where the lobbyists for Israel and Jared Kushner are all pretty much were the ones that were trying to facilitate this to get the United States to join up. And we've been watching the genocide in Gaza. I mean, everyone's seen what they've done to these people in Gaza. And I'm just super disappointed that the rest of the world has not stepped up and said, you know what, this has to stop. Enough's enough.
I keep wondering what their pain point is going to be that will put them over that edge, because I've been to the Middle East quite extensively because I had a relative who lived there, and I've been to Israel, I've been to the Gulf states, and like Israel is like this big. It is a very, very, very small country, and they're getting bombed from what I can see quite badly. Their dome isn't effective because the Iranians have these cluster bombs. I don't know if you've seen this. They send one bomb and then like 40 come flying out, and they just don't have the capacity, the interceptor capacity or the dome capacity, I guess, to get all of them. And I see that yesterday that they were protesting a bunch of Israelis at Netanyahu's house to stop this because now it's affecting them. And so I don't know what the pain point is for Israelis for them to get their government to stop this. And I don't know what the pain point is for the Americans to do something about Trump, because so far with all of the god awful things he's done to them, destroying their democracy, destroying their economy, putting people in these camps, I mean, all of it. And it's still not enough for them to be able to stop him. And so for me, I'm always, what is the point where this will end? Or will it just be Trump saying, you know what, I won this and I'm out. And then what does that mean for the Israelis? Because again, from what I'm reading, that will not stop the Israelis. Like they're getting ground forces going into Lebanon. You know, I don't know, again, what the resistance point is for their reservists. Because again, when I was in Israel, you see all these young men and women who are reservists, and they're like just ordinary kids, right? They're young. And they've had this whole Gaza thing, and I blame them 100% for what they're doing to those people, but I can imagine the trauma. And now they want them to go and do the same thing in Lebanon or something similar to that. Like, is there going to be an appetite for that? So I have no idea what their end, and I think nobody else does either. Like I said, I've been following this really, really closely because I find it really interesting. And I don't think anybody is able to answer that question. And the one thing, like I say, that I hear is that if Trump pulls the plug tomorrow, this isn't going to end, because now this thing has escalated, and Iran is now using the strait as kind of a toll transportation route. You got to pay a toll to get through. And that's, I saw that apparently today an Indian tanker a tanker to India went through, and they paid in yuan. They paid in Chinese currency. They're, you know, and this threat on the US dollar is quite significant. Maybe will be the end of it. I don't know, but it isn't going to stop apparently just because they have, Trump says he's won, because Israel wants reparations and it wants to make sure this never happens again. And you can't guarantee that with the Americans. So it's really, really, really dangerous.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to this, and it's quite interesting because Trump, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's essentially, he doesn't know how to end this. And we're seeing that now with him trying to reach out to other countries to have them come and help out in the Strait of Hormuz, because he doesn't know where to go from here. And in my mind, I'm hoping, I hope that he just basically claims victory and backs right out of it. I'm okay with that. I mean, obviously we all know he's not winning, but if it ends the portion of the United States going in there, versus them putting boots on the ground and actually invading Iran, which is, I think, is the worst case scenario at this point right now, for the next level. But going back to the tolling of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, you're looking at, especially in trading in the Chinese currency, we're looking at BRICS countries that are going to, keep doing this. And I think there was a huge concern that BRICS was going to devalue the United States dollar. And you haven't heard that much about the BRICS countries with their own trade as much. But I think this actually might spur it even more. And I think I see nothing but this backfiring on the United States of America. And I think it's going to devalue their dollar eventually. I think they're potentially, if they start putting boots on the ground and this thing escalates in any sort of way, you're going to see a bit of a proxy war where you're going to see behind the scenes. I mean, we already know Russia behind the scenes is already supplying intelligence, but I have no doubt that India and China are going to start behind the scenes, start supplying them with, munitions and things. Like, I could see this escalating, and it could escalate, very badly for the United States.
Well, it's interesting because I saw that they managed to knock it. Like, I guess one of the most fortified buildings in the world is the American Embassy in Iraq, and they managed to knock out their radar systems. And so they had a drone flying over that embassy today, I believe it was, for quite a long time. It was a way to provoke the United States because that is such a secure building, and they basically knocked out their system. They have no way to replace it. So they flew and they took pictures of it, and then I think they eventually landed or bombed the drone there, or whatever you do with those things. And so it's, and they say that the drones that they're using, or some of them, that you can make that for the cost of a used laptop, anywhere up to like $20,000, whereas the Americans are spending $1 billion a day in the kind of deficits they have. And I saw that their one is an airplane carrier, the Gerald Ford, that they had a big fire on it and it incapacitated a lot of them. So they was going to the Gulf, and it's now had to turn around and go somewhere to be repaired. And they actually think that fire was set by U.S. service members on that aircraft carrier because they don't want to go there. And if that's true, that is a very significant rebellion or revolt, like very significant. There was a lot of that in the media today. And again, I try and source out with multiple sources instead of relying on one. And I've seen that from a number. I can't 100% say that that's true, but they have no aircraft carriers there. And this will put this one out of commission for quite a while. So I think it's like, who wants to put their life on the line? I'm sorry, for Donald Trump. Like, it's for no reason. You're talking about people's lives, and not to mention the Iranians and the Lebanese and all of these poor people in those areas who were so hurt, and 3 million displaced and everything else. So I think for Canada, if we get these increased oil and food prices, then that's definitely going to be an issue. How it will hit or not Mark Carney, I don't know. Mark Carney's obviously an economist and he knows this is coming. So we'll see. And I also wonder, would the fact that Canada has said, no, we're not participating in this, which is our next topic, will that provoke him even more to want to go against us, to come after us? Will he have capacity to do that? I don't know what you think about that, Rob.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that aren't getting involved. So I think it's, I think Donald Trump is realizing he has no allies other than Israel at this point, really. I mean, and apart from a few of the Middle Eastern countries that are very tied to the United States, especially Donald Trump. But he's realizing that everyone's gone. Like, we're gone. Like, we're not part of this group anymore. We don't believe in what he's doing. We don't believe in what he's done. The things that he's done has sort of put everybody off in the first place. We've all realized that we no longer can rely on them as being a good neighbor. We can no longer rely on them as being a good trading partner. And the world has seen that, and we're all responding. And it is, it is fitting. And Donald Trump, it depends on the weather, I think, for him, on who he wants to pick on next. He was calling out the UK for not doing certain things. He was calling, so it's sort of the flavor of the month, or flavor of the week, or flavor of the day, or flavor of the hour for Donald Trump as to who he wants to poke at. So yeah, at some point he's going to poke at Canada for not getting involved, but everyone realizes we don't want anything to do with this. We he can poke at us all we want, and we just know that's his game. And the sad portion of it is we're sitting there seeing what's happening in the Middle East and with Iran and whatever, but over on the other side, they're starving Cuba. I mean, they're starving the people of Cuba. Like that's Gaza. That's what Israel did to Gaza. And now the US is doing that to Cuba. And where's the outrage? Where is the outrage from the international community saying this is not right? You can't do this to these people because you just feel like doing it. And yet everyone gets all up in arms because China wants to take over, Taiwan. Oh, that's the craziest thing. But literally, we have the US starving an entire country, and yet nothing. It's baffling to me. I don't understand it.
I think the fact that the world community allowed Gaza to happen, fully funded pretty much by the Americans, was really the moral failing and legal and military failing that's leading to all of this other abuse. I really do. I feel that was a real turning point that was allowed to happen. And
I think we helped with that too, but I'm not sure if we still are. I hope we're not.
No, I don't think we are. No, there's a lot of conflicting information about whether we're selling weapons or supporting their weaponry, and we're not.
Yeah.
I took a good look at that, but that's not good enough. And especially from again this world perspective, it's just been. I think to me that was a real turning point in our history, or in the Americans' history, that this has been allowed to happen. And now we have this situation. We have, like you say, Cuba, and there's all these other places in the world, Sudan, Haiti. I mean, it's all over the place, and we're just kind of going on. So I feel like, again, just taking it back to the Canadian political perspective, that we are in a very advantaged position here, but we are going to pay the price, obviously, in fuel. We see that now, and in food, and perhaps other goods. And it'll be really interesting to see if there's any fallout for Carney, because the Conservatives are already starting, but I'm not sure the Canadian public is going to buy that, just because of the situation we're in with the United States. So TBD, right? To see what happens, because it's still early days.
Yeah, and every day is going to bring something new.
Yeah, and I hope we can all, those of us who are in, reasonably good financial positions, that we can support our communities, support the people in our communities with however you do that, whether it's through charitable donations, if you can afford it, through little food pantries on your front lawn, maybe if somebody can't pay for groceries, whatever, if we can, really support each other, especially those in need, because I think Canadians are generous, that we really need to be more aware of that, or more conscious of it, and help each other out, because we're going into very, very difficult times. There's no way to kind of whitewash this.
Yes. I think, honestly, I really do believe that our Canadian grocers need to step up. They need to step up, and they need to suck up some costs, because, you've got certain companies making billions of dollars year on year, over year, making even more. They're making billions. And when we're in times of crisis like this, we need those stores to start thinking about people over profits. And you sort of think about it, from a grocery standpoint. If a grocery store is making 25% gross profit on their items as a whole, And, we're looking at having to increase specific items, and not all items, because not all items are going to need, replenishing in these grocery stores on a massive scale. And there's a lot of warehouses that already have product in them, in around the stores. But instead of jumping up on prices, or probably even going right across the board and adding an extra percentage, don't come out and say, look, we're gonna for the next little while during this war, we're gonna maintain our prices as is. I mean, their costs are really only in transportation costs, and there might be a few manufacturers or a few people that are going to try and push on added cost of certain items. But I honestly, if there was any heart at all with these grocery stores, they would start looking at the people that are shopping at their stores on a regular basis, that are very loyal to them, and sit there and say, for you guys, hey, this is unprecedented, and we know that over the years you guys have been facing high prices, and we've been the ones that have been doing it, but we're not going to increase them again. We're gonna stick with you guys, and this is what we're gonna do. And I think that they need to step up, and they need to do this for Canadians. And it's disheartening to think that there could be retailers that bump up their prices on purpose. And we'll see this in quarter earnings. We'll see what grocery stores in their quarterly earnings have increased year on year. And we will know those that started gouging people based on this, because they started blanketly putting a certain percentage, raising their prices by 5-10% across the board, rather than only on items that are really being affected. And we're going to see that. And I think Canadians need to hold these people accountable and say, look, you want to try and gouge us? You've lost me as a customer for I don't even know how long at this point. But I'm going to go to the grocery stores that aren't gouging me.
Yeah, somebody here in the comments has just said that No Frills has already increased a 4-liter bag of milk by 20 cents a bag. So there you go, it's starting. And that's unfortunate. Do you think this could have some positive impact on speeding up the development and implementation of renewables like wind, solar, hydroelectric, what else? Electric, thermal, nuclear. Like maybe this might be a catalyst as well for countries to start to speed that up a bit, because we can't be held hostage to this.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Like Carney actually has already got some of those projects started in Canada, or on the books that that they had in the budget, especially for nuclear energy and things like that. And I think we're heading in the right direction. The only problem is we're facing an issue where that's not going to be ready tomorrow or next year or the year after. So I think we do need to start looking at other options in life, but we're always going to need oil. Like you're even for the wind turbines, and you need oil for that. Like oil is something that you're always going to need regardless of what we're doing, and we're always going to be held accountable as long as the oil prices are controlled by OPEC, right? So they're not controlled by the individual governments of the countries that have the oil, right? So that's the biggest issue we're facing right now.
Yeah, as an online community, you see stores that are or farmers markets that are not giving away or reduced selling prices. We can advertise that so people know, or can pass it on to people who need it. Like there's that farmer, I think in Abbotsford, he gives away a ton of like potatoes and products. He's excellent, and people show up in the thousands to get free produce. So there are people like that, and again, he's going to be hit obviously by the fertilizer issues, but I think if we see places that are going to give people a break, maybe we can share that online as a whole community, so that we can pass that on to people who may need it.
Yeah, actually, I think it's there's been 2 years now, and I think it's in the spring in Cloverdale, where a bunch of the farms get together and they bring a bunch of food into like the Cloverdale fairgrounds, and it's basically free food. So everyone just shows up with bags, and they can go around and grab all these like for free. Like it's absolutely free for people to show up. So I think that's phenomenal. I would in myself really hope that people that didn't need the free food aren't there trying to just get free food. And I hope it's there for the people that really truly need it and deserve it. And I think kudos to those farms that do that sort of thing. And I think we need a little more of that in this world.
Well,
So Happy says he has a question. I'm trying to figure out what the question is. He says he volunteers for a lack of, because he's trying to put it in a, he only has so many characters on TikTok. He says he works for a not-for-profit and it has a community pantry, food bank, and they rescue food. And there's a garden section where they have harvest. They harvest a modest amount of food.
awesome.
And
Post it, Happy.
yeah, he says we focus on food rescue. And then he says, should we be focusing on awareness and expanding participation as volunteers instead of focusing on starting something new?
Yes.
So join other agencies and then, yeah.
I think you can do anything that expands the availability of these food products for people. It's a great idea, Happy. Post it on your site. And let people know. So, because I think there's this need. We already have a lot of people who are food insecure in Canada, which is pretty awful, to say the least. And it's going to get worse. So, anything that we can do to promote this. So, yeah, please post.
Nobody is saying the government's perfect. They are lacking in areas like the disability community right now, and seniors are falling further and further behind every single day, especially with this war going on. And I don't see a lot of any government official talking about it. Instead, they're talking about Indigenous rights, residential school denialism, or trans individuals, when they should be talking about people suffering right now and starving, and they're not, including the current government. Like, the current government does need to, I think we need to write letters to them and tell them that they need to start helping people, because they're getting worse off day by day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People who are already financially vulnerable are obviously the ones that get hit hardest by this. So in a little online world here, if we can, or I don't even know how little it is, there's a lot of us that we can share resources and information. So like what Happy's talking about, I think is a really great idea.
I think the problem with governments talking about food insecurity, I think it's very difficult because the government does not control grocery prices, and that's the reality. Even though everyone wants to blame all these years of liberal government and look where we're at for grocery prices, I mean it's not. That's not why our grocery prices are the way they are. We're talking about inflation when it comes to a lot of different factors over the years, and it was exacerbated by COVID, and it's only gotten worse. And you're talking about manufacturers that have raised their prices based on ingredient costs that have risen. Now you've got trucking costs, you've got warehousing costs, then you got more trucking costs, and then you've got the rising cost of wages for people on top of all of that, and all of that has to come from somewhere, because the grocery stores are not going to not have their profits, and that's where we're looking at is they're exponentially growing profits based on all of these other factors that are real and they are inflationary, and there's nothing you can do about the inflation when it comes to certain products and goods. But what we can do is hold the grocery stores accountable for the gouging of those prices. If you've got a price on something that was $10 5 years ago, and you've got you basically had about a 25% increase on it, so that they make 25%. So it's like $12.50. But when that good becomes $20 and is not $10 anymore, and you still have the 25% increase on it, now that good is $25. So we're now looking at a $5 that goes to the grocery store rather than before it was $2.50. But they're still using the same percentages on a larger sum. So now we're looking at us having to pay $5 more for an item over and above what it was. And essentially now it's, $12.50. It's almost double. But grocery stores need to be held accountable for the percentages, the gross percentages of the products that they're placing on those products. And they keep increasing at the same percentage, even though those items are growing. And, you're seeing that in how many billions of dollars some of these grocery stores are making in the year.
And they'll never be held accountable.
No, I mean, there was a dog and pony show. I mean, Jagmeet Singh, and they brought in Galen Weston, but I mean, it was a dog and pony show. It was essentially basically the government started saying, oh, hey, look, we're going to try and do something here. They weren't doing anything. It was just a, political, ridiculousness. And, that's nothing came from it. We need to hold people accountable.
Yeah. And I don't see that happening. Because every time you try to hold billionaires accountable, it's the working class that seems to say we need them for jobs. Like when Trudeau put in that slight increase to the capital gains, people went mental. And it wasn't wealthy people, it was middle class people and lower middle class people, because they're like, we need these people, because if we tax them more, they're going to leave Canada, and then where will we be? Like, we've created this myth that we need these wealthy people to survive. And so I don't think that, and the government's not going to do anything about it. So I think at this point, there are some incomes things that they'll end up doing. They will, just like the GST that they're giving to people, the increase in the GST income levels, but they're not going to hold these guys accountable. So anything, I feel at this point, we need to really be part of our communities and help out wherever we can.
Yeah. The only thing that I could think of the government being able to do is tax some of these corporations at a much higher level and taking those taxes and putting it back into the families and, giving them some sort of rebates for it. But again, is that really going to happen?
I'd love to. I think most Canadians, the polls show, are totally supportive of a wealth tax. But are they actually going to do it? I don't know. That's one of Avi Lewis's things. And I personally don't like him or support what he's saying. Yeah. But I do agree with that. And we'll see what happens. But he's never going to be prime minister. But on our next topic, which is on, again, Canadian and this war, is the Canadian government's reaction to us getting involved militarily. And there was just a poll, I think, that came out today that said that among Liberal voters, 88% were against us getting involved, 83% for NDP, and 61% for CPC. And I think it's clear that most Canadians want nothing to do with this war militarily. And so when Carney came out with his first statement saying we support them, the Americans, insofar as getting rid of the Iranians' nuclear capacity, a lot of people seem to take that as a full-throated support for the war. And there was a lot of consternation about that. And then he's evolved his position as this thing has evolved. And now we have David McGuinty, our defense minister, yesterday and today saying clearly and unequivocally, we are not going to be involved in this from a military perspective. There are potentially things we can do if we're asked to help build infrastructure, like rebuild desalination plants or things like that, but we will not get involved. And so I hope that this is now clear for Canadians, that this is the position of the government. I don't know what you think, Rob, because it sure seemed to make people angry when they thought that Carney was involved in it. It made me angry. I'm like, there's no freaking way we're doing this. But I think it's a lot clearer now. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think originally when Carney came out and said what he said, it is sort of that standpoint that a lot of politicians around the world were sort of taking, that, yeah, we don't want Iran to have this nuclear capability because in their hands it could be catastrophic for the world because we don't know what they're going to do with it. And I think him saying that was sort of along those lines of basically saying, hey, if this is the reason for what for what they're doing, yeah, we believe that Iran should not have nuclear capabilities. And it was early on, and I think a lot of us would have liked for him to say, hey, I'm not sure why they're doing this war right now. I haven't received any information as to the real reason behind it. We would rather have a peaceful, negotiations happening in there, because there were negotiations happening between Iran and the US while this was happening. Before this happened, yes. What people don't understand is they were having peaceful negotiations. Iran was agreeing to some major things for diluting the uranium podium that they had, which should really, make a lot of people feel a little bit better about what it was, but all of a sudden we get what we get and there's war. So, I mean, I think it's disappointing that Carney didn't, sort of, not blast the United States, because you still have to be a politician and you still have to be politically correct when it comes to certain things, but he should have probably had a little harder stance at the beginning. I like where he's at now, where basically we're not going to war. We're not joining this. And, we want to be part of any sort of peaceful negotiations and, try to help end this thing. Right. So,
yeah. Very clear. I think I just saw a comment here from Notch that he says that he thinks that the more clarity of the position was due to public backlash, and I would agree with that. And I due to evolving circumstances as well. And again, unlike every other country other than Mexico, these guys are our neighbors, and we need to be very careful, because I can only imagine what Carney knows with his level of security clearance about the threats to us. And he's playing, it's a real balancing act. So hopefully this makes it clear to Canadians, the vast majority of all of us who want nothing to do with this, that Canada is not going to get involved from a military perspective. So I hope that closes the door on that conversation, because even on CBC today, they were still going on about what he had said initially. And it's like, that was like February 29th or whenever, the day after, like, get over it. And we need to move forward. Like, this is changing really quickly. So,
it's just it's that conservative group that wants to try to smear things in any way that they feel like they can, right? So they're jumping on it. They're jumping on every word that he says, and they're going to spin it however they want. Carney needs to be a little bit more careful on what he says, so that they don't have the ability to spin it their way and try to, pollute the minds of Canadians on their spin of what Carney's actually saying. So. Yeah. It's good that he came out though and clarified, and the stance is changing. So, I mean, we see that. So
yeah, and hopefully he learned a bit of a lesson from it. So now we get to our friend Pierre Poilievre, who is down in the United States. He's in Austin, Texas today, meeting with Greg Abbott, the governor, and various state people and oil Enbridge people. I don't know if he did this before he left, but he posted a video today for St. Patrick's Day that he was in a bar. He poured himself a Guinness with quite a long head on it, and then made all sorts of comments about the Prime Minister, and that this signified, that the Prime Minister has no heft either. So, basically for me, he's down in the States. He's meeting with people that can influence nothing with Trump. Like, they have no influence on Trump. Greg Abbott, I don't know. He's a very extreme right-wing politician, Republican politician. And I didn't see anything on his social media sites about this today. But the people he's meeting with have absolutely no influence on Trump, and Trump is preoccupied at this point. And I think the ideas that Poilievre has are not realistic for the Canadian auto industry, which has been declining basically since, I think, the 90s. This is not just a Trump thing. And anyhow, so he so-called stood in this bar in the United States and again criticized Carney and the Canadian, and basically by in effect Canadians. And I keep thinking to myself, and people that I'm watching online are saying, who is advising this guy? He just keeps looking worse. He keeps sinking further in the polls. They say if an election was held tomorrow, the Liberals would have 200 and some odd seats. And they just keep making these stupid, inept, insulting moves. And I don't know, have you seen any of what he's doing down there, Rob? Like, any comments?
Yeah, well, no, I saw the video. This is the funny part. So here's the funny part. So you've got Pierre Poilievre, who had a couple fantastic interviews, I thought, for him. And I mean, I'm not a fan of Poilievre, but he had a couple interviews where he looked really good. Like there was a lot of things, the way he was speaking, he looked confident. He came across, quite, anyway, he came across better than he normally does. And we were all actually, Christi and I think we talked about it in one of the podcasts, where we were talking about this is a dangerous side of Pierre Poilievre. And if this is the route that he continues on, he could gain some traction. The problem is, after that, he's just done nothing but, ridiculousness. And who does that to a poor pint of Guinness? Like, who does that just to prove a point? Like, why would you do that to a poor pint of Guinness just to prove your point? And then I joked around. I actually, I think it was on Pierre Poilievre's TikTok where they were showing this. And I said, oh, once again, Pierre Poilievre blaming Mark Carney for the bad pour. And he wasn't even there. Like it was just, I don't know. For me, I just thought, is this just another low? Like, is this another low where you're sitting at a bar with a poorly, horrible pour of Guinness, and then you're sitting there blaming Canadians or blaming Mark Carney and the government for all these random things that really, some of them aren't even under his control. And you're referring to that as the foam. And you're like, come on, man. Like, give your head a shake. Actually, the funny thing is I didn't know he was in Texas. When I saw that, I didn't even realize that he was there. And I'm like, if you're going to go somewhere for St. Patrick's Day, go to Boston or something, like have some real fun.
I think also too that you're in the country that's threatening Canada.
Oh.
Like what the bleep are you doing? And criticizing the Prime Minister when you're out of the country like that. He said to Mansbridge, or one of these guys the other day, they asked him, do you think Mark Carney, they said, you respect Mark Carney? Oh, yes, I respect him. And I think he respects me too. Sounded like a 5-year-old. And I'm like, Mark Carney, think about you. You're a non-entity to someone like him. And then you pull a stunt like this. I mean, it's just so low, right? So low.
It just, it just goes back to Pierre Poilievre. He can't continue on in a proper way. He's got to go back to slogans and rhetoric and just ridiculousness. And that's all he knows. That's what he reverts to. And to ruin a pint of Guinness is just absolutely atrocious. And I think he should be ashamed of himself for doing that. And I think everyone, if you're going to be upset about anything, for anyone in Canada, has to look at that and go, you fool, how dare you? How dare you?
On St. Patrick's Day of all days.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, it sounds like, other than like somebody was writing here, the missus, that's sort of his bro thing to do, along with I think that's what they're appealing to, because nobody in Canada is buying it except his little base, right? Because it's it's dumb and it's insulting, and it's also insulting of people's intelligence. Like, you keep playing these little dumb games when the stakes are so high, and you're in the country that's hurting us. So that, let's talk about Don Cherry.
Oh yeah.
If we can. So the Conservatives, Andrew Leach nominated him for the Order of Canada. And Andrew Leach is one of the worst Conservatives. And he's then seconded by Jamil Javani. They're all over the internet. I think they've set up a petition. It's on the Conservative Party of Canada's website that they want him to have this award. And basically, when I looked into it, because I remember watching Saturday Night Hockey with my dad when we were kids. He would come home from work and we'd actually have TV dinners with the family, and then we'd watch that, and I'd see Don Cherry. And as a kid, I thought he was a jerk. And he said horrible things about people. And anyhow, whatever, fast forward to now, he's been gone a long time. He's a very old man. And so two things out of that. One is that the Order of Canada is supposed to be made, nominations should be private and anonymous, because in case you don't win, and politicians should not be using this as a wedge issue. That's not what this award is for. It's the highest, I think, civilian honor you can get. And they're cheapening it, as they do with everything else. But what's happened is, because he was so bigoted and towards French Canadians, Francophones, that Poilievre's French Canadian flank, or his Quebec flank, is coming out in opposition of this. And that's unusual in these parties. They have, they have their whips and they keep on one message. And I saw Chantal Hébert say that this is a really serious issue in Quebec, and that if for some reason he were to get the Order of Canada, that no other Quebec person would ever accept that honor. So it's really, really serious. And again, it seems like they're using this as a wedge issue to appeal to their little populist group that's still supporting them. Like, with the polls the way they are, his personal polls and the party's polls, which again, polls came out today, and it's really bad for them. The fact that they would do this and split their own caucus, especially in the biggest or second biggest province in Canada, and the only Francophone speaking province. I think there's others, New Brunswick as well, but like, it just seems to me to be some sort of political incompetence at best, and imbecilic at worst. What do you think about it?
The funny part was, as a kid growing up, I really enjoyed Don Cherry. I mean, let's just say, obviously I don't agree with his comments on immigration or immigrants in Canada, and the misogyny of the way he talked about women in the dressing rooms and things like that. I mean, I was raised by a single mom and my grandma, so I mean, like there's no way you're looking at that and thinking that's okay. But his overall persona, talking about hockey, Don Cherry's rock'em sock'em hockey, like there was, like, for me, yes, he was controversial, but I really enjoyed watching Hockey Night in Canada with Don Cherry and Ron McLean, and how they would bicker back and forth. And Don Cherry was outspoken and wild, and Ron McLean obviously was much more reserved and try to keep him in his lane, which he could never, because he couldn't. There's just no way. And so I grew up with that, and so I've got I've got a little place in my heart for Don Cherry, apart from some of the things that he stood for, or some of the things that he really portrayed on there. There were still other parts of it that really made me endeared to him, and just his wild antics. However, I don't believe he should get the Order of Canada. I mean, for as much as he's done, there's no, you look at the people that should be put up there, and anyone who gets the Order of Canada, in my mind, should not be a divider. They need to be someone that everyone across Canada can look at and feel good about them, going, yeah, that's yeah, hey, pretty good. But the fact that he was so divisive, especially with immigration, and the way that he talked about sort of women reporters not being allowed in the men's dressing room, not for the men but for them, and other things that he sort of talked about, and of course his disrespect for international players, disrespect for Quebecois people, like there's no way you can get it, and I find it disgusting that the Conservatives are using this as a political game. Like, they're doing that. Like, they know well that all nominations need to be private. It's a secret nomination process. And I think Don Cherry should be upset with the Conservative Party for using him as part of their political game, because that's what they're doing. And once again, we see it, though. We've seen the Conservatives do this all the time. They use certain people or certain circumstances for their own gain and try to create division across Canada. And this is creating division across Canada, because he is a polarizing figure. He's not endeared to everybody across Canada. Only a certain percentage and a certain portion of Canada are endeared to him. And the Conservatives know that. So, of course, they're riling up their base.
I'm going to show this comment. I like this one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Andrea says he deserves it as much as Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well said. You're absolutely right. I think that really encapsulates it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that I think what these Conservatives do is they show you who they are every single time. Poilievre's kind of ugliness, like his incompetence, and then this kind of bigotry, right? Which is what Don Cherry is, what we would call a bigot when he was saying these things. And like, why would you want to rest your reputation on that when there could actually be good people that you could have not nominated secretly, right? You shouldn't be doing it publicly, but you're doing this because this is who you are. This is what this promotes and what they stand for. And I think when you're up against someone like a Mark Carney in the times that we're in, like, you just can't win with this. You're going to appeal to this base, but you're not going to appeal to anybody broader than that. In fact, they're going to look down on you. Because first of all, young people don't know who Don Cherry is, I would imagine. And people like me who remember him, and you, Rob, and I think I'm quite a bit older than you, but I remember it really clearly when I was growing up. And I can even sing the NHL hockey theme to you, which I won't do. But
oh, I don't know. You brought it up.
Yeah.
We can do it together.
And, I had a massive crush. I was telling somebody the other day on Guy Lafleur. He was my little girl crush when I was a girl. 12 players. And for this guy, that they actually are hanging their hats on him, and to the expense of their own pieces of their own caucus, is like, it's just dumb. It's really, they're not good at politics. It's just dumb politics.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny enough, I when I was a young kid at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, I got to see Guy Lafleur come into town and play live. And as a kid, you don't realize how amazing that is until later on. But I'm pretty sure we only went to that game because my mom wanted to watch Guy Lafleur play, even though she's a Canucks fan. But I'm pretty sure that night there were plenty of ladies in the audience. Cheering on Guy Lafleur and not their Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, totally. So it just seems to me to be another one of these low-level stupid moves. And these conservative pundits I see again on CBC and CTV, they're all over it. They think this is great. And it's like they're like Trump sycophants. They sycophant Pierre Poilievre's message, even when it makes absolutely no sense. And I keep wondering, do they actually believe it, or are they just saying that because they have to support him? It's just odd that you sell your soul down the, or not your soul, but sell your honor down the river like that. At least that's my view of it. Like, I just don't understand why they're doing this. It's such a bad move.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the Conservatives, the Conservative Party right now. They're in the mud. They've been in the mud for a while. That's why they're never going to be, the party in power, because they keep staying in the mud. And they're not pulling themselves out. And if anything, they're just rolling around in the mud. And that's exactly what this is with, the Don Cherry Order of Canada, is they're staying in that mud and they're rolling around in it and they're enjoying every second of it. And they're trying to pull the Liberals and pull everybody else into the mud with them. And it's not working. And we're all laughing at them because they're just rolling around in mud. You're like, dude, do you even see yourself right now? Like, come on, maybe come out of the mud every now and then, wash off and, try something a little different.
Yeah. And how about some political competence and some policies that help Canadians? And they're just not, again, they're not capable of doing that. And they got away with it for some reason, which I still don't understand, under Trudeau. And there were a lot of reasons for that. But those days are over. Like, you're not going to climb back to that with this. Prime Minister, with the situation that Canada is in, and with all of these global events and what's going to come our way economically from all points of view, from what I've been reading, that we're going into very, very difficult times, and you're going to have to come up with better than that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because I think Trudeau's ineptitude towards the back half of his career as prime minister really led to this conservative group really getting in the mud and it being okay for Canadians, and they joined them in the mud because Trudeau really, and I always say he really did overstay his welcome. He got to a point where he became very comfortable, and he was not the same prime minister as he was when he first started. And I think there was just a lot that went on that really gave rise to this ridiculousness that we're seeing in the Conservative Party, who's still in the mud. And you're like, you're not dealing with the last half of Justin Trudeau anymore, where it almost felt like he was just playing along as prime minister for as long as he possibly could, and really gave rise to this. And but now you're dealing with Mark Carney. You're dealing with someone who's really here and is going to do great things for Canadians, and he already has. And you're in the mud, and you think that's okay. You think that playbook's still working for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your head out of the mud.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So we're going to be in for another very interesting couple of months. And I see here we have 3 minutes left. And if you're okay, Rob and Polly, one of the things that I keep thinking about as I spend time on social media here and on Substack are the two. And I do spend a lot of time on Twitter because it's got good international political commentary on it for all of the foibles of it. And there are so many smart Canadian and international, but I'll reference Canadian social media content creators right now. And I feel like I was thinking last night we should be promoting those people, advertising who they are and promoting them. And so I came up with a list because I think we need really good sources of information. And I know for me, I like it quick, and I want expert, and I want quick, and I want succinct, and especially, around what's happening now. So I came up with this list of TikTok creators, which I'll put on my post. And if you can post it on here, Polly, so that people can look at it and want to check out their pages. And this is not an exhaustive list. These are just people that I thought about that do political content, that don't do a ton of personal stuff. It's focused primarily on politics, and that's only my bias because I like seeing politics. And the last two, The Breach and Press Progress, are obviously independent media outlets. But these are the ones that, especially Maple Dealer, T-Jack, Mr. Bond is interesting as well, Cole. So if for people who are watching, or if we can post this later, if you don't know these content creators, I would suggest they're absolutely worth taking a look at, because they give great information. It's in this TikTok format, so it's quick. And I will come up with another list for Substack for people who are on there, and for X. And if other people have suggestions of people they'd like to have on this list, then please put them forward. Sorry, I live right near a fire station. Just a sec. Okay, don't stop at my house. Yep, good. So I just wanted to just put these names out there for people who don't know, but I think we need to, again, as we are going to go into these difficult times, that we need to support each other and to give people information. And I know for me, my focus has been pretty narrow, anti-Poilievre and now pro-Carney, but these people that I've identified have so many other really great Canadian political perspectives and economic perspectives. So Doug Craig is excellent on the, yes, here's a bunch of Bill Kelly podcast, Laura Babcock, Klaus Kellerman and Planet D. I don't know Klaus Kellerman, but I'll take a look. Yes, we can add those as well. Thank you.
I would also mention I like Todd Maffin. Maybe not as political, but I mean he has a lot of fun stuff, and I enjoy listening to him. So
yeah, I'm sure I could add a bunch of people to the list too.
Well, maybe what we can do is expand this list and post it, because this viewer has, these ones here, Laura is excellent as well. Like, these are really, really good suggestions. Thank you for those. And Todd Maffin's been really good. These healthcare workers coming into BC from the United States. And I don't know if you saw, but they was announced through our Ministry of Health in British Columbia today that we have attracted 414 healthcare workers to BC from the United States. That's 89 docs, 42 nurse practitioners, 260 nurses, and 23 allied health professionals. That's fantastic. Like, that is amazing for British Columbia. And Todd, I think, was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with you. He's an excellent. So if people have other suggestions, if you want to put them in the comments, and we can start to put this out there, and let's start promoting us as Canadian creators. Because
it's funny because everybody was all up in arms about Bill C-11. Bill C-11, oh no, it's a censorship bill. And it was a bill that was supposed to go to broadcasting agencies to make it so that these platforms, YouTube, Netflix, Prime, and other platforms are supposed to put Canadian content first, and then American, and then whatever. I don't even see the Canadian content first in any of the American, like, I don't see the Netflix. Like, when I watch Netflix, Canadian content doesn't come up first. When I watch YouTube, Canadian content. So they were all worried about Bill C-11 being a censorship bill. I can still see them, the people that were worried about this bill being a censorship bill, because it wasn't. It was just all rage and trying to get people afraid. But also the bill itself, I don't see the Canadian content coming forward. So this is a really good idea for allowing everyone to see who really good Canadian content creators are. There might be some that you don't agree with, but they're still good. Like, they're still good people.
Yeah, and you don't have to look at all of them, but if you're looking for good, solid Canadian political content, these are the ones. And I know that there are others that I just forgot, but I just think it's, for me, I just was thinking, how else could we use these platforms? And I think it's good to promote each other. And we can do, the missus is asking if we can do a separate video on this, and we can probably do that, or, well, we can do that, not probably, so that it's in video format, people can pause it. And once we fill out the list a little bit more, but there's a lot of great people here, and we can even, we could even identify them by their areas of interest. Like I know Doug Craig, who lives in BC here, he is very up to speed on conservative politics here, what's happening with the conservative leadership race. He does really good videos on that. So there's all sorts of different angles or interests that people have. But so anyhow, that was just my thought. And it sounds like what I can see in the comments that people think it's a good idea.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should find somebody who's really good at organizing this data for people and have a good way of. I'm terrible at organizing.
Oh, I can.
Just go on AI.
Yeah.
A list of all content creators in Canada for political or whatever.
Do you know that 53% of, I think I saw on one of these AI programs, again, it needs to be cross-referenced, but something like 53% of Canadian political content is made by Americans. I don't like that.
Yeah. And they're starting to take our media. We need a law against foreigners having ownership over our media.
Yeah.
Well, you saw what happened down in the United States with CNN, right? It's now bought up by Paramount, and they overpaid for it just to be able to turn
What they say.
turn it conservative.
Yeah.
Larry Ellison, who is
Yeah.
a Trump supporter, and he is the biggest single contributor to the IDF in Israel.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
there you
the
go.
beginning of the end for CNN, at least. That's for sure.
And I think
IDF, Pierre Poilievre is associated with the IDF, is he not, Francis?
I don't know. That's the IDU. No.
Oh, sorry, IDU. Yeah, see, thanks.
I think it'd be good to get a list too for X, Substack, and for people who are on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram because I can only do so much of this, but we can maybe put some feelers out there and see what people think, because people are on a variety of platforms. Blue Sky's another one. But there's a lot of smart people who are taking the time to do this content, and it's nice to promote it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Well, I think we're over our time. I hope that this was beneficial to people. Was there any questions in the comments that we needed to address?
No, we addressed them as we went along. I do want to try to on Friday's show, when Christi's back, I want to try to reverse this. I want to try and have a TikTok live, because people really want to come in and they want to talk and they have questions. And so I think write down your questions on Friday. I would like to reverse this, have instead of us going from StreamYard live to TikTok, I want to try and go from TikTok to streaming TikTok live on YouTube, so that we can all be in a live together and discuss issues, and anybody that has questions for Christi or Rob or Francis can ask those questions if Francis is available. I don't know. I haven't cleared it with Francis yet.
Look, I'm in the middle of a production right now, so I have to yeah.
But if she's not, then that's okay. We're going to try and do those regularly so that we can and then maybe Francis can come up for one if she can't at this time. But yeah, try to have it so that people can come up every once in a while and ask the questions they want to ask, because there's people that they're dying to come up and they want to ask questions, but they can't come up on here.
Yeah, I'll take the
troll.
Thank you for setting this up. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who attended. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the gifts, the shares, the likes. Don't forget to follow us on Maple Minds YouTube. Appreciate everybody being here. This was a very good show, and I want to really thank you, Francis, for being because I struggle, so it's good to have hosts to help with that.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you for having me, and thanks, Rob, for putting up with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for putting up with me, and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I don't know where you live, but maybe one day you and Christi and I can get together.
Don't say it right now because you're on live.
No.
Oh, fine. I live in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver area. So
yeah, we're all in.
Okay. Bye, TikTok.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.